In 1802, going deaf and desperate, Ludwig van Beethoven wrote a strange request. When he died, he asked, his doctors should describe his illness in detail so the world might finally understand him. He died 25 years later. And nearly 2 centuries after that, a few surviving strands of his hair began to answer. This is the story of what modern forensics found threaded through that hair. The poison that may have shadowed his whole life, and the honest twist about what actually ended it. The story really begins a year earlier, in 2023. A team led by Begg and Johannes Krause sequenced Beethoven's genome from 5 authenticated locks of his hair, publishing in the journal Current Biology. For the first time, science knew for certain which strands were truly his. Hold on to that. It matters later. Then, in June 2024, a different team took 2 of those same authenticated locks and asked a new question. Not what his genes said, but what his body had absorbed. Led by Nader Rifai at Harvard and writing in the journal Clinical Chemistry, they measured the heavy metals trapped in the hair. The results were staggering. One lock, with a documented chain of custody, held 380 micrograms of lead per gram of hair. The second held 258. A normal reading is under 4. To one of the researchers, Mayo Clinic's Paul Giannetto, who measures lead in hair from around the world, the numbers were almost hard to believe. And lead wasn't alone. The same hair carried arsenic at roughly 13 times normal, and mercury at about 4. Converted to a blood level, the lead itself pointed to something near 70 micrograms per deciliter, many times what any modern doctor would tolerate. Here is why that matters. Lead at these levels is tied to exactly the miseries that haunted Beethoven for decades. A gut that tormented him, failing kidneys, and slow, cruel hearing loss. He first noticed his ears failing around age 28. The overlap is hard to ignore. So where did all that lead come from? The prime suspect is wine. Cheap wines of the era were often plumbed, sweetened and softened with a lead compound called sugar of lead, aged in lead-soldered kettles, and sealed with lead-soaked corks. And Beethoven drank wine daily. The cheaper the better. Wine was likely the main channel, but not the only one. Lead lurked in glazed cups and cooking pots, in the lead-laced medicines and ointments his doctors prescribed, and even in fish pulled from a Danube already thick with industry. But here the researchers do something rare. They refuse to overclaim. The lead, they say plainly, was never high enough to have killed him. It may have deepened the suffering of his life. It did not end it. So if not the lead, then what? For that, we go back to the 2023 genome. It revealed something the metals never could. Beethoven carried a powerful inherited risk for liver disease near the 96th percentile, and in his final months, his hair held traces of a hepatitis B infection. Put it together, and you get the real twist. The most likely cause of the liver disease that took him wasn't a poison at all. It was a collision. Dangerous genes, a viral infection, and a lifetime of heavy drinking converging at once. The lead that may have darkened his days was, in the end, a bystander to his death. So, from 2 strands of hair, lead at 380 and 258 micrograms per gram against a normal under 4. A heavy metal that likely fed his gut, kidney, and hearing troubles. Yet the thing that took him was written deeper, in genes, a virus, and drink. 200 years ago, a fading composer asked only that his illness be explained, so people might understand him. It took a few surviving locks of hair and 2 teams of scientists, but his wish finally came true. Subscribe for more stories where science reopens history's oldest cases.